Well, hello, everyone. It's your girl, Gabrielle. Welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Topics. Let me tell you what this show is about in case you are new to this little shindig. So, this is the show where we like to have real talk about real things. We like to talk about things in education, employment, mental health, physical health, or anything else steamy. We talk about a variety of different topics on this show, but there is one central goal, and that goal is for you to learn something. So I want you to be better than how you were yesterday. And this is the show to do that. So let me tell you what the topic of the show today is. The topic today is the history of African American dance. So we are going to get into that today. I am looking forward to this topic, and let me tell you who the guest is that's going to help me with this discussion. Her name is Waterfall Adams, and let me tell you, her elevator pitch is that she is a creative professional and that being a creative professional is all about taking matters of creative endeavors into your own hands. That is fabulous. All right. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring Waterfall to the stage. Hi, Waterfall. How you doing today?
I'm fine, and you?
Good, good. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on Hot Topics. All right, so you are going to talk to us about the history of African American dance. I am looking forward to this, so I'm going to have you take it away.
Okay. Yes, I'll be discussing like a poem that can be found in both of these books, with the Free to Be V and Eclectic Mind of V, which you'll find on Amazon in ebook and paperback format, and also and hopefully other agitators and trying to get into audiobook format, and also be referencing African American Dance, an illustrated history by Barbara S. Glass that was published in 2007. And I'm also looking for more sources to, uh, based on the poem. And also, I did write an article on Hub Pages about the history of African American dance to try to look for like more sources as well. And as you see with my attire, I'm dressed like where African American dance began in the first place, which is Africa. According to Barbara S. Glass, Africa it's more than just a continent. It's like it has its own peoples that have their own dances. It's more than just a way to move your body. It's about mating, rites of passage, times of celebration, times of sadness, healing. Like if you're sick, like a doctor is like dances for your healing. And also dance, even like as a people, black people, when we were taken in the United States as slaves, we didn't have possessions with us material things, but we do have culture. And there are characteristics of African dance, which you might find in African American dances today, such as African movement vocabulary, since African dance requires you moving all of your body parts. It's a thing called isolation, like you move your hips. Like, for example, you see my arm right here. I'm giving you a little example of isolation. Like orientation, the second one is orientation to the earth, which means like it's like a dance is like a spiritual experience, like you're closer to God. In fact, I used to be a praise dancer when I was in my sophomore year in high school. The third one is improvision, like freestyle dance, which you might find in break dancing. The fourth is circle and line formations, which you might find in certain line dances like, the wobble, electric slide, cupid shuffle, other line dances like during events like say like a wedding or a cookout. The fifth is like importance of community. Like it brings like dance brings the community together. The sixth is polyrhythms. It's like a lot of rhythms at the same time. Like Africans, they dance to like more than one beat at once at one time. The seventh is percussion, which is one of those instruments that happen to be which is found in African American dance, where African Americans first had started drums. In fact, during slavery, drums were not allowed because drums they were used to. It's not just dancing to them; it's communication, like our phones and other devices we communicate with each other. The eighth is pantomime. It reflects like the motions of life. The ninth is something in hand, like a prop, like a stick, like a cane. And the tenth is competition. That's right, competition. Like you guys serve the step up franchise dance battles. Yeah, that's right. Back in Africa, they had that. By the time slavery came along, it there were like certain dances like I explained earlier, the black slaves could not do, like hip movements and the dances that Africans did. They were considered as like non-Christian, primitive, savage, idolatrous. Like the oldest one that deprived during that time in the 1600s in the colonies is called ring shout. It's dance where both free free blacks and enslaved blacks did, and also Christianized African American communities. And there's also buck dance and the Jobba dance. In fact, when Africans came to this were brought to this country, the effects of the Christian religion has affected the way that black people moved because the slave master owners were afraid that the dances that the Africans did back in their homeland would recite rebellion. In fact, ring dance, the ring shout, it has circle formation, polyrhythms, pantomime, and community participation. The things that you might even see in African American dance today. By this time, like while slavery was still going on, in fact, when it ended, there were also minstrel shows and vaudeville, and even like after slavery, there was also the chitlin circuit, which is black performers. They had, excuse me, let me catch my breath. Give me a little something real quick. Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah, of
Now
course.
we're back. There was the chitlin circuit, which means it was like certain venues that only black people could perform, certain hotels and lodgings and restaurants, and they probably had the green book with them. Like they had to look for signs that would actually let them in. It were signs they had saw like no coloreds or no N words. And also these minstrel shows included something called blackface. It's a makeup where white performers, even black performers, that was worn to mock black people. And by the early 21st century or late 1800s, there, and if you have seen the color purple and the Great Debaters, there's an establishment kind of like out in the woods in the South called juke joints. It's like a club where people go in there like have a good time, drinking moonshine, dances and stuff. And then around this time, the early 20th century, that's when the Great Migration started. From black people in the South moved north, midwestern, and west. And around the time also the Harlem Renaissance. Like the speakeasies, the Cotton Club. Also, you find like one of my favorite black dancers is Josephine Baker. Like the Cotton Club, like there were a lot of black entertainers that performed on stage. However, they could not sit in the audience with the white people at all. The Nicholas brothers, Dorothy Dandridge, or the Dandridge sisters, the group she was in before she became an actress in Hollywood, performed there. By this time, there were also something called rent parties. Like rent parties is where people have a party, but they charge you to get in, and that money went towards paying the rent. By the Great Depression in World War II, there was the Lindy Hop, the Jitterbug, the swing era. You hear like jump blues, and before that, tap dancing. It was like buck dancing or clog dancing, like out in the street, trying to make some money. But Nicholas Brothers, their form of tap dance is like a lot more flashier. In fact, go on YouTube and there is a clip of them from the movie Stormy Weather. You should check that out. And also, one of my favorite choreographers is Catherine Dunham. When it comes to like jazz dance, she added isolations to it. Like what I'm doing, if you can see, and also there was like the shimmy, it's like isolations. You see like hip movement. Hey, that's where like the African American dance like comes from. And also with Josephine Baker and her famous banana dance. And then we get to the 1950s. That's when the Alvin Ailey dance company first started, which is one of my favorite dance companies. In fact, Alvin Ailey was a student of Catherine Dunham. And also around this time, you see television, like, and also like, a teenager. You learn like different dance crazes, like certain shows. Like there was a show, it was by Alan Freed, and also this was an episode where Frankie Lyman and the teenagers they performed "Why Do Fools Fall in Love." That show got canceled because he was dancing with a white girl, and like people like behind the scenes, like the company did not like that, so that got canceled. There were certain like dances like the mashed potato, and I forgot to mention the 1960s. The mashed potato, the twist, like chubby checker, the twist, the bus stop. Oh, and not the bus stop. Other dances that have African characteristics, but the show like at the time American Bandstand had like Caucasian teenagers and black teenagers were added later. On continue. Let's go right here. Okay, and then we're gonna go to the 1970s. It's a show hosted by Don Cornelius was called Soul Train. In fact, I remember growing up watching that show. Get 11 o'clock at night. I mean, at night, but in the morning, and you learn like the newest dance crazes at the time in the Soul Train line. And then this is also around the time 1973 when a new genre of music was first being heard in Bronx, New York in 1973 called hip hop. And if you happen to watch What's Happening and you're the character Rerun, he was part of a dance troupe along with Tony Basil who sung the song Mickey called The Lockers. You saw, the pop in and the lock in. That's an example of early hip hop dance, and also a certain king of pop along with his brothers named Michael Jackson. When you see the before the song Dance Machine, that was the robot. Another example of early hip hop dance. And then around the 70s, on to the disco club. Yeah, you'll see the hustle, those early hip hop dances, a lot of happy music, a lot of lights, a lot of color. It emerged in the black and Latin underground clubs. In fact, the word disco is short for discotheque. And then around the 1980s, this is when you get to start to see like mergers of the certain music video channels like BET, 80s and 90s. Okay, I'm sorry. That's when you see BET, MTV, VH1, and the box. In fact, that's one of the ways I learned how to dance. In fact, African American dance, even though you can learn it in a dance studio, you like your parents probably taught your parents taught you how to dance, older siblings, friends, watch on TV, watching movies. You learn how to dance not just in like a formal dance studio setting. And this is around the time in like 80s and 90s you'll find out in the street, somebody put down a piece of cardboard on the ground and you'll see break dancing. And also around the time you see the like breaking one and two. And there was a dance called Spider where somebody launches off of a pyramid of people, like people stack themselves like get on their hands and knees, and somebody was launched off. And hip hop music around this time starts to become more prevalent. And also around, I forgot to mention 1940s in Black historical college universities, you'll find stepping was first getting started. You'll find that in sororities and fraternities. In fact, there is a dance company called Step Africa. At Step Stepping as a dance, it originated in Africa by the South African miners. Like they had to use their boots make sounds to communicate because they weren't allowed to talk. Are there any questions so far?
No, no, I think you covered a lot of ground so far. So, well, I will ask this. So, what do you think was the purpose of all these different dances, right? Because it sounds like it was black people trying to communicate with each other because they couldn't communicate openly, right, in public for whatever reason, whether it was racism or maybe it might have been a lack of education in that they didn't know how to put it into words, but they knew how to put it into body movements. So What do you think is the reason for all these different dances?
The reason of all these different dances, because you probably see like a hint of them in like the African Americans that you see today. And also, I forgot to mention about, and I took not African, like intro to dance when I was in university. I learned like the difference between like the African aesthetic and the European aesthetic. Like the European aesthetic, you will find in like ballet. In fact, let me look up we're talking about European characteristics, so you probably would like know the difference between the aesthetic of African dance and the European. Like the first one for the European dance aesthetic is political and elitist basis. Like most of like the European dance is more like a court dance, like a like royalty, like the aristocracy. In fact, when ballet began, it was kind of controversial for its time because people showed an ankle. Yeah, because with the dances like twerking, in fact, twerking has been around before hip hop. If there was like a dance in the Mali um area, in fact, one of my pastor clan is Mali. It's called Mopoka. Like, movement of the butt, that's
Yes.
where it came from. Oh, the second one is vertically and heavenward orientation. The third one is couple dance, like the waltz.
Hmm.
The fourth one is geometric patterning. The fifth one is country dances. This is like dances from like the ordinary people, like the lower class.
Hmm.
And the sixth is individual dance. Yeah, even though there's like more I can research and more I can learn about, it's like more about like African American dance that I never knew of. I'm still am researching things I things I can learn more. Well, I am glad that I was able to tell you and the audience about the history that I know so far.
Well, in terms of your, I want to hear more about your thoughts. So, what do you think is there a message in dance? Um is it just movements that black people are doing, or is there a goal? Is there a message? Is there some sort of change in society that black people are trying to do throughout time? What are your thoughts?
Well, your question, it reminds me of the poem in this book as well, and I'm going to recite it if it answers your question. It is
Okay.
called "We Have the Dance." As a people, we have the dance. Way back in the motherland, we always have the dance. Through times of joy, sadness, to heal, rites of passage, we have the dance. Through times of enslavement, we still have the dance. Even when they try to take it away, we have the dance. I'm sorry. We dance through the shade. From the juke joints to the migration, we have the dance. Through depression, I mean, even when it's time to pay the rent, we had to dance. Through depression and worldwide war, we have the dance. And dance studios and sock hops, we have the dance. On television through unrest, we have the dance. Live and in color, we can get smooth, we can get rough. In the disco night, we have the dance. Through BET, MTV, VH1, we have the dance. Through social media, we have the dance. At Broadway, church, the club, community centers, competition, Hollywood, television, social gatherings, universities all over the world. we have the dance. We even put our own spin on it. Because of this, I shape what my ancestors gave me and get my Jackson on. So, to the future and beyond, we have the dance. Thank you.
Beautiful. That was a beautiful poem.
Yeah, yeah,
So
throughout.
go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. And also some lines, even though I want to add more to this poem of some things I might have missed, can I break down some lines?
Sure. Go ahead.
And one of the lines I forgot to mention when I discussed African American dance, talking about even when they try to take it away, we dance through the shade. There was a dance called the cakewalk. It's a dance where like black people kind of you like made fun of how the white Eurocentric aesthetic was. Look a little more stiffer than the African aesthetic of dance. And I've also forgot to mention, oh, one part time we even put on spin on it, as in your own free time, go on YouTube and type in the word hiplet, which is HIPLET. And also there have been black, also now black ballet dancers such as Misty Copeland and many others. They experience racism and talking about how their bodies don't really fit that ballet aesthetic. And even like all over the world, we have the dance. How black people who are in different places in the like triangular trade that were dropped off at their own had their what they add in the dances they had in the area that they're in, and also and get my Jackson on. As not African American, I would have been remiss if I didn't have at Michael Jackson and his family. They have made a lot of contributions to the African American dance, like Motown 25, the Moonwalk. Even though that like somebody taught Michael Jackson how to do the moonwalk. You got any more questions, ma'am?
So so just kind of to kind of reframe it. So it just sounds like when it comes to African American dance, it was usually some sort of pushback against the mainstream or um, some like a way to cope with the changes in the times. Um, so, from based on your poem and based on what you've said so far, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like the history of African American dance is rooted in um, survival or not being able to communicate verbally or as a way as to cope with certain life stresses. So what is that the sense of what I'm getting from the poem that you read and from everything that you said so far about the history of African American dance?
I think it has. Also, yes, like for example, did you watch the Wakanda Forever movie? Like,
Wakanda Forever, yes.
yes, you saw like the funeral scene. They have those people dancing. Like in some peoples, they have like at the funerals, they not just mourning death. They celebrate the life. There's like drums and dancing and singing.
Yes, yes, I remember that scene.
Yeah, and I haven't looked at. Yeah, I'm trying not to make it like a stereotypical way, even though there have been like dances try to make black people look like a stereotype. Yeah, there is more research and more things I can learn about the history of African American dance that I have never knew, and I am willing to share. In fact, I am doing researching, doing a for a script. I'm trying to adapt in screen and or stage. It's gonna be like music, like kind of like a musical, time travel in the different eras of the dance I just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Like as a people, even though like I just mentioned and also mentioned in Barbara S. Glass's book, we didn't have material possessions when we were captured to this country, but we had culture though. And dance just happened to be that part of that culture, just like with music.
Right, right. Right. So we were and it's all it's rooted in slavery, or rooted in slavery times and the slave trade. Um, a lot of those dances were taken from Africa, right, the continent of Africa,
Yeah,
and
rooted in Africa.
rooted in Africa, yeah, and brought over to America during the slave trade. So it has it has it has the root is in slavery, pretty much.
No, it's not in slavery.
Not in slavery, but
Not
in
rooted.
rooted in
Africa.
slavery. Yeah, rooted in Africa. Yes, and it was brought over during the slave trade.
And also, I forgot to mention, even I forgot to mention my poem, is also like mating for use for mating. For example, there's a people called the Wadabe, and they have like a festival during the rainy season called the Girawal. It's kind of like a male beauty pageant, but women, single and married, they're like the judges, and they see like one they like, and there's like a dance called the Yashe. Like they get um. Well, you might want to look that up and see what they do. If she see a guy she like, they can either be, if the woman's married, she'll probably like allow to like steal her from her husband, or or maybe like an evening in the bush, if you know what I mean. And also rites of passage, when like a girl she reaches an age where like the community recognizes her as an adult woman, like usually like her dance is kind of like move like more in the hip movements, because usually like the African aesthetic, like you see a lot of hip movement when it comes to black dance part where it comes from. That's where how it kind of like found looked at as like savage or vulgar.
So the so you bring up an interesting point about African American dance, is that it's characteristic in its movements. It's not typically found in Caucasian dances. Like you said, there's a lot of hip movements, and because it was not part of the white culture, or not typical of white culture, it was seen as unconventional, as savage, like you said.
Yes, just like you know, remember Elvis, like that on when he was on the sorry, excuse me, I think it was the Ed Sullivan show, and you saw that hip dance that he did. And I also forgot to mention 19. Also, another line I mentioned is we can get smooth, we can get rough. Like remember those Motown artists back in the 50s and 60s on television, where they're like the Temptations, the Supremes. Like some of their dances, they look a little more smooth, but then artists like James Brown and Tina Turner back when she was in, I Tina Turner review, and so how she danced, it looked a little more rough. In fact, at the time, people thought that Tina Turner, how she dressed and how she moved, was unladylike.
Hmm. Right, and I think in around the 70s, I'm just remembering the movie Hairspray. I think black people introduced the twist.
That was the 60s.
That was the
Like
60s, right? They introduced the twist, and you know,
hairspray 60s.
right, and even that was looked upon as as like strange, weird. Um, it looked like it wasn't a part of the culture of mainstream popular culture.
It was considered that like the conventional Eurocentric standard.
Right. So I think you left off at the 80s. What
Yeah,
happened after that? Let's continue the timeline.
like the 80s and 90s, that's what I meant as in the video, like the video, music video age that we have now. We see like on YouTube, like the channels I just mentioned, they don't really show music videos that much, but then like a little kind of a breakup channels of them probably do. That was like one of the ways I learned how to dance. Like you see like the latest dance trends, you watch music videos. Now you have social media. Or if you want to look at like the hottest, freshest dance, you go on social media. And also, we're talking about through social media. Right now, here we have in the 21st century. I remember like when YouTube first came out. I remember that Beyonce, you know, uh oh dance and
Mm,
single ladies. That's like that one had like a lot of views. A lot of people copy that dance.
right. It's a lot more trends.
Yes, a lot more trendier, and also Michael Jackson dances. Even though he may he rest in peace, he died 14 years ago. Like his dance from his music videos. That's one way I learned how to dance. They copy that, and it's on social media. So it's more like more widespread now, thanks to social media.
Right. Thanks to social media, it's more popular, and even a lot of these dances are integrated into white culture, Asian
Culture,
culture. So it's
black,
more
mhm.
integrated racially now.
Yes, more black culture, and also I mean, it's like in the other places I just mentioned, like like the football games with the marching band. You see drumline, and you see the Prince and the Leaves. You see how they those major dress, see how they dance.
Hmm. So, in looking at the history of African American dance, you started from, I think you started from like the 40s and
I, I didn't start from the fort. I started like I said way back in the motherland. Like the beginning of time,
the beginning of time. Sorry.
like the traditional talking about the traditional dances of certain African, lots of African like peoples. Have done. There's like Zulu, Wolof, Dogon, Wadabe, like all like different like the countries in the continent of Africa, like the peoples. I'm not saying tribe. I'm gonna say peoples have their own unique style of dance, and some of what they either captured, like brought over here and put their own spin on it.
Right. So from from the motherland, right? And even to today, what do you think has changed about African American dance? So I'll ask you this. So what do you think has changed and what do you think has stayed the same? So let's start with, what do you think has changed?
Well, I think it probably influenced other dances like modern dance, jazz dance, has like an influence on like the isolations and things, even though they have been found like other cultures of dances. And what stayed the same is you see dance competitions, props, system like props being used. Isolation looks a little more acceptable. Even some people have a problem with it.
So you're saying what's different is that it started all these other movements. So it started like jazz, for example, maybe a little bit into rock and roll. So it
Yeah,
started with these.
1950s rock and roll, yes. Yes, even like people when they like parents or whatever, they call rock and roll the devil's music, and people had a problem when like how Elvis did his hips. That's like his music and that dance is like influenced, kind of like African influenced.
Right. So someone like Elvis who integrated, African American dance into his music.
Hmm.
Um, it spurred his popularity.
In fact, it reminds me of another poem from Free to VV, which is called "We Invented Rock and Roll." Would you like me to recite it?
Sure, go ahead.
From the roots of the gospel grew into some blues in the country that has some jump and some rhythm, of course. Add that jazz, don't forget that boogie woogie. People tend to forget that a king's hit came from a big mama. A church lady gave an architect the building blocks to build a music that can go hard, get heavy, be glam, be soft, be electric, play in the garage, and have folks rocking and rolling all over the world. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for that. So, with all these different dances, it seems to be a dance for every decade, right? So,
Like era, decade, good times and bad times, and also like make money, pay the rent, like rent parties and maybe in the strip club.
even in the strip clubs, yeah.
Yeah.
So it found, it was in some good places and it was in some dark places as well. But
Mhm.
based on based on what you've been talking about, it just sounds like over the course of the years, it just became more mainstream and more popular, and
Yes,
maybe, dare I say, maybe even more accepted by the white culture.
yes. And would you like me to break some things down with the we invented rock and roll? Like
Yeah,
for example, when I talk about a king's hit came from a big mama, do you know the song Hound Dog?
yes, I've heard of that.
Yeah, but there's a woman named Big Mama Thornton. She sung that first. A church lady gave an architect the building blocks to build. As in a church lady, there was a lady, her name was Sister Rosetta Tharp. You might want to check her out on type it on YouTube and see how she played the guitar. And you know who the architect of rock and roll is. Little Richard.
Mhm.
Yeah, don't be mad at him telling the truth, talking about they ain't never gave me nothing. I'm the architect of rock and roll, which is true because you know how the music business was like back in the 50s, you know. And also also listen to like Daniel, uh, I think his name was not there, but Pat Boone version of Tutti Frutti. And also how in the music how like black artists, how they have a little tag of like if the music has like a lot of profanity and other kind of, let's say, vulgar material, there's a sticker on there. But because they're black, probably have that album like in a paper bag or got it in the music store, got to go somewhere in the back and get it. And also like the teenage kids, like they probably like hid it in their room. And while like let's say Pat Boone's version was like a little more acceptable to the parent,
Mm.
where they keep like hid the black version in their room or something, probably listen to it when mom and dad ain't home. The thing is with my where I told you like the script I'm working on, there is like production working on. It's just like so much I have to research more than just the dance. I gotta research it. Um, like places, like let's say like a ballrooms or club, or kind of music video. Like remember those like futuristic music videos?
Right.
Pro, yeah, and also music, hairstyles, makeup, clothing, shoes. Look, shoes. Even hey, maybe in some eras, barefoot.
Right. Right. So it's what was once considered unconventional, out of place, savage. It's now become more popular, more accepted,
Mhm.
and over replicated.
Yes, it reminds me of something like I heard this quote. I don't know where it's from. Talking about like they took away our drums, so we clap our hands.
Right. So I mean, yeah. So something took away the drum. Something probably
Beat on
what
tables, beat on drawers. That's what the slaves did.
right, and it all comes back down to the slave trade, right? As the slave masters are trying to remove the African culture from the slaves. They took away the drums, and you know they try to take away their identity. But what did they do? They made music with their
Yes.
hands and feet.
Hmm.
All right. So it's just kind of thinking about everything that we've talked about. It's becoming more accepted, and all these dances were reflective of the era and of each era, and it was used as a way to communicate, to rebel, um, to get through tough times, right? And it all started from Africa, right? It started all from the
Hmm.
motherland,
Yes.
and and as soon as it got to America, it changed, but
Hmm.
but the essence of the dance remained the same throughout all these years, and because
Hmm.
of social media, it's a lot more popular, a lot more trendy, and even more accepted by white culture.
Hmm.
Um, so now it's not so savage and it's not so unconventional anymore.
Correct.
All right. Well, this was a fabulous conversation. We're going to start to wind things down a bit. So, Waterfall, thank you again for this conversation. So,
You're
I like to
welcome.
ask my guests to share any words of wisdom with our audience. So, Waterfall, do you have any words of
Well,
wisdom you'd like to share?
actually, from this book features some quotes, some originally from me and some from other people. All credit goes to the people I got the quotes from. Let me find something to end with. From me is in life, have flexibility, and I will forget. And here's a quote from Tyra Banks: "Perfect is boring, human is beautiful." Thank you.
There you go. There you have it. All right. So, Waterfall, thank you again for coming on Hot Topics. And now we're going to go
Thank you.
ahead with your promotion. All right. So, Waterfall, you are all over the web. So, you guys, if you want to learn more about Waterfall Adams, you can follow her on Facebook. She has two Facebook accounts. One is personal, veronica.e.adams. You can also follow her business page, which is Waterfall Adams. You could follow her on Instagram as Waterfall Adams. You could also follow her on Twitter. The account name is Vavonni159. That's Vavonni 159. She's also on YouTube as Waterfall V. That's VEE. She's also on TikTok as Waterfall Adams 86. You can also find her on LinkedIn under her name, Veronica Adams. So follow her on LinkedIn as well. She's also on, I'm just going to wait for it to come up here on the screen. So it's scrolling below at the bottom of the screen if you are watching this on video. So I encourage you to take notes and to make sure you get that information. But she's also on Pinterest, Vavani159, and Tumblr as Vavani159. So I encourage you guys to go to all of her social media accounts and follow her on every single one of those accounts and stay in touch with her and learn about her as well. So while it is scrolling below at the bottom of the screen, I understand that people listening to this on a podcast, you have to use your imagination. But actually, no, you don't have to use your imagination because this information is in the description. So if you're not able to catch any all that I've just said, do not fret. All of this information is in the description. So whether you're watching this on video or you're listening to this on a podcast, all of this information is in the description. So it is at your fingertips, however you are taking in this information.
Oh, and I forgot to mention a big shout out to Precious Digital Marketing Agency. They have really been a big help for me to market and promote my books, and I hope they can help you too.
All right, we got a shout out. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, I do have your video, so we'll play that in a second. So let me get these blogs as
That
well.
was made by that company.
Yes, yes. So we'll play those. Let me just get these blogs. You also have a couple blogs, um, which is at the bottom of the screen right now, which of course again will be in the description. So can you tell us about your blogs, Waterfall?
Well, well, my first blog, Waterfall's World. In fact, that was the original title. My first blog is I always did want to blog one day and couldn't really come up with a title, so that was the title. It is the eclectic blog where I talk about different topics like what's going on in my life and current events. And my second one, Waterfall's Online Art Gallery, excuse me, is about me discussing and critiquing my favorite artworks. All credit goes to the original artists that are alive because there's not my original artwork on there at the moment. I feel with this other blog, I feel like my degree in art history, I'm a art history major with a minor in dramatic art. I feel like the art history part is being put in a good use.
All right, so there you have it. And I encourage you guys to check out her blogs, both of her blogs as well, which is also available in the description. It's also at the bottom of the screen if you happen to be watching this on video. But either way, this information is available to you one way or another. And lastly, you mentioned it several times, but you have a couple books, and we have a lot of books actually, and all of them are on Amazon, I believe.
Yes, and if there are other agitators like say Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, Google Books, check them out. If not, I'll try to get them on there, and also try to do like the audiobook format of my uh, books as well. The books you just saw as well, and I'm working on more researching on more books and other written content.
Great, great. And show us those books again. So you read from a couple of your books. So one is called The Eclectic Mind of V. That's one of your books, and the other one is called Free to Be V. So those are a couple of your books, which you can get on Amazon. You could also get at your local bookstore. Um,
Yes, and also check out this book, right? What I have been referenced throughout this interview, African American Dance and Illustrated History by Barbara S. Glass. It's a good book as well.
all right, so there you
And
go. I'll go ahead.
oh yes, and also I will be researching. more material from the script I'm telling you about. Because there's some things about African American dance that even I don't know.
And there's a
And
lot to
hopefully,
learn about African American dance. It's rooted in so much history. So there's a lot to learn about it, and and I encourage you to keep researching it, and even to my audience as well, look into it for yourself as well. There's a lot you can learn about African American dance. But yes, so we have your books that are on Amazon right now, and also check them out at your local bookstore. And the book that we
which I'm
referenced
trying to get them
throughout
in
the
there.
interview, so we encourage you to pick that book up as well. It is not Waterfall's book. I just want to make that clear. It is someone else's book, but it is, think of it as a book reading.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
a, a book that we want you to read, an extra, as you will. We want you to pick
Hmm.
that book up as well by Barbara S. Glass.
Yes.
Guys,
I was trying to get my books in the like local bookstores, like you actually get off your behind, go to a bookstore that have the books. A book is something where you do this and
mm-hmm.
go get it. It's like a lot more I learn about um, self publishing, but the internet, the age that this digital age that we're living in, has made that easy.
All right, so I know, so I know you can get it online, but if you can, go to your local bookstore and pick up all of these books that we have talked about today. Is there anything else you want to share, Waterfall? Any promos? Anything else would you like to share at this time?
Well, I already told you about my book, so that'll be all for now. And I'm also the company I just mentioned. We're working on getting a crowdfunding site together. Once it is complete, I will speak more on it.
All right. Oh, and I just remembered your videos. I'm sorry. So you have a couple of book trailers. So let me just play these book trailers. So this is one trailer. Beautiful. And this is the second book trailer. All right. Beautiful. All right. So, Waterfall, thank you for coming on Hot Topics. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Wonderful. All right. Let me put you backstage now. And excuse me, you guys. All right. And it is now you and me, guys. So, let's get my information up here. All right, you guys. Oh, wait. No, this is my information right here. All right, so you guys, we have reached the conclusion of yet another episode. Thank you again for joining me. Thank you for coming on this ride. We are in season 5 right now. I can't believe we're actually in the 5th season of Hot Topics. So thank you for joining me on this ride. Whether you are brand new to the show or you've been riding with us all this time, thank you for joining us on Hot Topics for all this time. So I want to take this time to remind you that Hot Topics is a production of my tutoring company, A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. So what does that mean? That means, listen, if you're looking for any kind of academic assistance, whether it is for you or for your child, we offer, my team and I, we offer one-on-one tutoring, test prep, college counseling, editing and proofreading. We also have a variety of workshops as well. So if you are looking for any of those services, we offer those virtually as well as in person if you are within the five boroughs of New York City. But if you are not, don't fret. We offer these virtually as well. So if you're looking for any of these services, please check us out. Our website is www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are on multiple social media platforms. So just type in A Step Ahead Tutoring Services and we will pop up. Just look for the yellow pencil with the gray and black tip, and that is us. So again, the website is www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. Go to the website and learn all that there is to know about us. And again, follow us on social media as well so you can get even more up to date information about us. I also encourage you, if you learned a lot from this episode, if you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to leave a comment in the comment section below or in the comment thread, whether you're listening on a podcast or you're watching this on video. Somehow there's a comment section somewhere. So I encourage you to leave your comments, leave your feedback about this episode. You could also drop a rating as well if you're listening to this on a podcast. So the feedback helps us a lot, whether you like it or didn't like it or whatever you have to say. Drop a comment, drop a note, drop a line, drop something. But please give us your feedback about this episode. All right, you guys, thank you again for joining me on Hot Topics. I look forward to you joining me on the next episode. Thank you guys again. And now, as always, I am signing off. Bye, you guys.